Hi everyone, and thank you very much for joining this webinar today. My name is Flora Zwolinski and I'm a Senior Insight Manager at Lumina Intelligence. And the webinar today is all about the now and next of the convenience market. So a brief agenda for today, I'm going to start by looking at the current picture of the convenience market. So the real building blocks of what the convenience market looks like. I'm then going to talk about how different shoppers behave in the market. And finally, I'll discuss the growth drivers for 2025 and beyond. So most of the data that I'm going to be using today comes from Lumina Intelligence's convenience tracking program. And this is the longest running consumer convenience tracker in the UK. It consists of 1,500 weekly online consumer quantitative surveys to a national representative sample. And we ask all respondents a range of different questions about lifestyle, shopping behaviour, convenience store brand awareness, and attributes as well. We then ask respondents whether they had a convenience store occasion in the past 7 days. So this allows us to get a measure of penetration. And for those that did have a convenience occasion, we asked them a wealth of different questions about that trip. So over the course of the year, we've got a huge sample size of over 48,000. So kicking off, looking at the structure and size of the convenience market. So the convenience market is forecast to be worth 49.4 billion this year. And this is value growth of 4.2% year on year. Now, some of this growth is driven by inflation, but we've also seen net outlet growth as well. So there are 49.5 thousand different convenience outlets in the UK, and this is growing by 2.4% year on year. But not all C-stores are the same, and there are different channels within the convenience channel. So the largest channel is the symbol groups. This is valued at 18 billion and is actually the fastest growing at 5.1%. Convenience multiples is the next largest at 10 billion, and its growth is in line with the symbol groups, but it does actually have much fewer stores. We've then got the unaffiliated independents who actually have the largest number of stores with over 18,000, but the value is smaller at just under 9 billion. There are then also cooperatives and forecourts that make up the market too. So talking about consumer KPIs, and first with penetration. So penetration is the percentage of UK adults who have a convenience trip or occasion in the past 7 days. So penetration currently stands at 62.4%. And this is growing year on year by 2.4 percentage points. So growing penetration is really important. It's really important you're reaching and targeting new shoppers and new demographics in order to grow your store numbers or grow your brand or category. Frequency next. So frequency is the average number of times a consumer visits a C-store on an average week. And frequency is currently at 2.8 times per week. And this is growing at 3.7%. So we're starting to see consumers visit C-stores more often. And frequency, again, is a really important metric to grow if you want to grow. A great way to do this is through tapping into different missions, different needs, different occasions. Basket size, so the average number of items in a basket is at 2.8 items per basket. And this is down 3.4%, so slightly fewer items per transaction. But because penetration and frequency are in growth, this isn't really surprising. If we're seeing more shoppers or more trips into the market, these are much more likely to be smaller occasions when shoppers are buying just a drink or a chocolate bar rather than a big top-up shop. And with basket size down, basket spend is also down 1.2%. So this is driven by fewer items, but the decline is not as steep due to inflation. So looking at who the convenience shoppers are, well, the convenience age demographic is actually younger than the total population. So we see a greater share of shoppers aged between 18 and 44. You're also much more likely to see family shoppers, those that live with their partner and children in convenience stores compared to the typical population. And the convenience shopper is actually a bit more affluent compared to the population as well. So thinking now about missions. So missions are why consumers visit a convenience store. What is the main reason they're going to that store? It's really important to understand why consumers or shoppers are visiting your store so that you can start to really grow frequency to give them new reasons or new occasions to visit for. But you can also use this information to make sure that you've got the best possible products, categories, store formats and layouts as well in order to suit those shoppers and make sure they come back and buy again. And there's a wealth of different reasons why consumers use a C-store. So from a total convenience level, top-up planned is the largest. So this is when consumers go to a C-store and they plan to do it to do their main weekly shop or buy what they need for the next few days. The second largest is newsagents. So that's when consumers are going to a C-store to buy newspapers, magazines, lottery tickets, or cigarettes and tobaccos. Food to go is the next largest one, and this is one that's dominated a lot of narrative over the past few years, and we'll talk about it later due to the high levels of innovation within the food to go mission. The next largest is top-up distress, so when somebody has suddenly realized that they've run out of something or need something and need to go to their convenience store to buy it. And the next one is treat, but there's plenty of other reasons why you could come to a C-store as well. But this order will not be the same for all C-stores or all channels within it. For example, the managed convenience channels are much more likely to have more top-up shops, while symbols and independents will likely have more newsagents or food to go. Stores in city centres will have more food to go missions, while stores in transient locations are going to be much more dominated by fuel. And even those in suburban or residential occasions, meal occasions, so daytime meal occasions or meal for tonight, will be much more important as well. So it's really important you understand the top missions in your store or in your store type in order to be able to grow. But not all shoppers are visiting your C-store for the same reason, and different shoppers come for different missions. And two missions that illustrate this perfectly are newsagent and food to go, who have polar opposite consumers. So the newsagent mission is heavily dominated by older shoppers, and the older you get, the more likely you are to visit a C-store for a newsagent mission. The inverse is true for food to go. Food to go has the largest share of those aged 18 to 24, and there's a really neat, consistent tail off of demographics as they get older within the food to go mission. So you need to make sure you're catering your food to go offering to these younger consumers. And when we look to see when consumers are visiting C-stores, weekends are the most popular, so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with a particular peak on Saturdays. In terms of time to day, there's a real spike mid-morning, so 9 to 11 a.m., and then that stays high around 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And again, missions will change throughout the day. So you can expect more newsagent missions earlier in the morning. Mid-morning, you'll expect to see more top-up shops. Midday, around lunchtime, you'll see more food to go and daytime meal occasions. Mid-afternoon, you'll start to see treating driven by things like chocolate and little pick-me-ups. In the evening, you'll start to see more meal for tonight. And then later on in the evening, you'll see more treating again, but very much driven by alcohol this time. So we also asked our survey respondents, what were your main drivers for choosing this specific store you visited rather than another one in the area? And again, it's really important to know why consumers are coming to your store specifically, and also why they perhaps might not, again, in order to be able to grow. So from a total convenience level, convenience is the biggest reason for choosing a store within convenience. So it being close to where I work or live is the largest driver to store. This is followed by I was in the area, but there really is a wealth of different reasons as to why consumers choose a particular store. I like to support my local store is the third largest, in line with good prices. And there are loads of different examples of convenience stores doing amazing initiatives to benefit their local community and therefore drive footfall through the door. Good prices is, of course, important. Value is important to all consumers, but there is a bit of an understanding or expectation that convenience stores will be slightly more expensive than main estate stores. But as we saw differences between age demographics and missions, the reason for choosing a specific store differs by different shopper groups as well. So this looks at which reasons for choosing a store overtrade for the different age demographics. And for these younger consumers, it's food to go and value that really are more important drivers. Tapping into those 35 to 44 and 45 to 54, convenience-led drivers are much more important. So those on the younger end of the scale, things like food to go, promotions, drivers too, but being in the area, also a big one. And those aged 45 to 54, close to where I work, close to where I live, and I was in the area, more important to these shoppers than average. Choice of alcohol also important to these shoppers too. And finally, for those older shoppers, so over 55, it's all about the customer service and experience. Parking is really important to these shoppers, but also things like having friendly and helpful staff who know me, liking to support the local store, and shop cleanliness and tidiness too. So to wrap up the now of what does convenience look like, why are consumers using it? We know that impulse purchasing is really important in convenience. So over half of convenience shoppers buy something on impulse when they're in store. And there are lots of different reasons why consumers might buy something on impulse, but the most important reason in C-stores is I saw it and was tempted. So visibility of products really is key, making the use of our lens and freestanding display units where things like HFSS restrictions lie are really important to drive that impulse purchasing. Promotions are also key, with 41% of shoppers purchasing something on promotion on an average trip. And again, the types of promotions will change depending on different categories, but it's really important you understand what promotions work for your category. And with more HFSS restrictions coming in from next year, it's important that we start to trial different promotions when we know that some of them will be banned. And finally, Price Mark Packed, or PMP, is something that differentiates convenience stores to other channels in the grocery market. And PMPs are something that resonate really well with consumers, and it's something that convenience store retailers tend to really like as well. It takes the pricing onus off them, and it gives consumers confidence in the price as it's come from the brand. There's no concern that it's been elevated by the convenience store. So moving on now to talk about the next of convenience and what we think are going to be some of the overarching trends that are important for 2025 and beyond. So the first two, value and health, these really are mega trends. They're two trends that are consistently important and relevant, but their relative importance changes depending on what's going on in the socio-economic background. And how you deliver these different aspects to consumers is constantly changing as well. The second area is changing missions. So two of the top growing missions from 2025 and beyond is going to be food to go and treats. And there's a lot of innovation in this area and also a lot of MPD. And finally, some of the smaller trends that are going to play a bigger role moving forwards and really are ones to watch that we're going to touch on are coffee, meal solutions, and social media. So first off, looking at psychographics. So psychographics is basically just a fancy way of saying consumers' core beliefs. And usually we don't see huge amounts of changes with them. But over the past couple of years with COVID and the cost of living, we really have started to see shifts in what's important to consumers. And this doesn't just impact convenience choices, it impacts all choices and behaviour. So value remains the most important. And the impact of the cost of living really is still being felt by consumers despite inflation returning to normal levels. We have seen a slight slowdown in the importance of value over the past couple of years, but importantly, it still is the number one psychographic for convenience store consumers. Quality and health were both deprioritized over the height of the cost of living when value really was just on consumers' minds. But we're starting to see these come back. So quality is now a similar level to what it was in 2022, and health is actually now more important and higher than it was in 2022. Health is commonly deprioritized during times of economic uncertainty and economic hardship. So it's interesting to see not just that it's come back to 2022 levels, but more so than 2022 levels. And it's going to be value and health that I talk about now because these are the ones that are impacting the convenience market the most. So one of the ways that we're seeing value play out in C-stores is with the use of loyalty cards. And these have evolved a lot over the past few years with growth from Tesco Club Card, Sainsbury's Nectar prices and Co-op prices as well. And retailers are really innovating with these creative schemes, which really are working. So just to hammer home this enormous growth, we can see loyalty card usage tracked in CTP over the past couple of years. This year, 12% of convenience occasions used a loyalty card scheme within promotions. This is up 9% from last year, and it's been a steady growth since 2022. So since 2022, its usage has grown by 7.5 percentage points. But because many consumers might have a Tesco Club card, a Sainsbury's Nectar card, or a Co-op members prices, let's say, it's not necessarily just about having one of these cards or having a loyalty scheme anymore. These retailers are having to be increasingly more innovative and aggressive on some of the rewards and promotions they can offer on these in order to stay competitive. So this is a rapidly evolving space. It's going to be exciting to watch over the next 3 years, and it's likely we'll see it span out even more across the symbol side of the market too. But loyalty isn't the only way in which shoppers are managing value and convenience, and own label continues to do well. And within the own label sphere, we've seen in 2024, 28% of purchases in convenience were from own label, so up a percentage points over the past year. So it's not huge growth, but it's consistent and it's not going away anywhere. But value doesn't just mean cheap. And actually, value can be very closely linked to quality and premiumization as a way to deliver value. So Asda relaunched its specialty range. Waitrose has really been relaunching and pushing its number one range. They even looped in S Club 7 within their advert, singing their iconic song, You're My Number One. But outside managed stores, symbols are investing in own label too. So Booker grew its Jack's own label brand and started to introduce more premium, more high-end products to a certain extent. So things like olive oil, sausages, as sort of gateway products for more scratch cooking. Spar as well has also included more own label, innovative own label ranges and products, tapping into things like seasonality, trendy flavor varieties, and also things like vegan-friendly wines. So own label does not just mean cheap. But a recent piece of news which will impact the convenience market is Sainsbury's, who have recently said they're going to Aldi price match in its C-store estates. So, Tesco already offers its club card prices and express stores. We've got Co-op members prices as well. But this is quite an aggressive piece of marketing, if you like. There's a general acceptance that you'll pay more in a convenience store compared to a typical store. But this suggests that Sainsbury's really trying to communicate to their consumers that local stores can be used for those bigger top-up trips as well. And convenience doesn't necessarily come at a premium. So it's likely we might start to see a bit of a gap closing between the price difference of convenience stores and main estate stores. So moving on to health. So as we discussed earlier, health is becoming increasingly more important now than it has been in the past. And we're now at similar levels to health consciousness during the cost of living crisis. So it's something that really is on consumers' demands, but it's also on the government's minds as well. So we obviously had the introduction of HFSS policy under the Conservatives. Labour government has really signposted that they are very keen to crack down on the nation's health, and it's looking at the food and drink industry to make changes. We don't know what those changes are going to be, but we can expect there to be policy in the next year or so. But from a consumer perspective, health is not always the same thing, and the meaning of health is consistently changing. Going back to the 90s and early 2000s, health was all around reducing and removing low carb, low fat, calorie controlled. Into the 2010s era, we started to see more around this added benefits and also the rise of plant-based. So what can you get from your food, not just what you need to take away? When COVID hit, we started to see more around immunity health, and this led its way to a new area of more nuanced, but also more natural, and with things like close linking between mental health and gut health. But now we've got things like personalized health with Zoe, these weight loss jabs coming through. And a lot of the narrative at the moment is around UPF, or ultra processed food, which is perhaps quite an industry term or something the government's thinking about. But from a consumer trend level, we really are seeing a bit of a shift towards plant forwards. And by that, I don't mean plant-based, that has plateaued somewhat. I mean consumers wanting to add more natural fruits and vegetables and whole foods into their diet. So actually really looking for less processed food. So innovation that taps into this has a chance to do really well within the convenience channel. So thinking now about food to go, and food to go really has dominated a lot of the narrative and a lot of the innovation within convenience over the past few years. And as a result, we've seen it gain share in the channel. And this has come from a couple of different push and pull factors. So it's been industry-led, retailers and symbol groups have really innovated to compete more with the wider food service market on the high streets. But it's also been consumer-led. Consumers have really been turning towards C-stores in order to get a much more affordable alternative to the current out-of-home options. And there are different reasons why consumers might engage in a food-to-go mission in the convenience stores. A lot of people immediately assume food-to-go is just lunch, but it's actually not. The main occasion within food-to-go is to buy a drink on the go. This is then followed by buy a snack on the go, and then also to buy lunch on the go. And because drink has been so big, we have seen a lot of innovation within drinks within convenience stores, and we can expect this to continue moving forwards. Slush, for example, has been a big footfall driver and a big concept within convenience. So this one concept, the Racetrack Pit Stop, a premier store in Glasgow, that was inspired by a trip to the US. Not only do they have dessert parlours, a cafe, food-to-go specialists, they've got 60 flavours of slush and liquid nitrogen bar as well. So it creates a point of difference from other stores. It makes it a destination, a reason to go and visit that store. But it isn't just drinks, and we've seen a huge amount of innovation within the hot, fresh, innovative to go that really does compete well with that wider out of home. As pictured on the right, these are pictures from Henderson's Group Spa in Mellisk. So we can expect to see this become increasingly more commonplace, more innovation within fresh, hot, quality and innovative solutions. But the other side of that within food to go is the meal deal, and this is so important to convenience stores. So the meal deal first launched in Boots in 1985, and then by the 2010s, meal deals were more mainstream in retailers such as Tesco's and Sainsbury's, and the meal deal stayed at £3 for years. Now, the meal deals, turns out, are a very emotive topic for a lot of the UK population, and any change in price rises, additions, creates quite a lot of anger and emotion, let's say, on social media. So for years that the meal deal stayed at £3. In 2021, we started to see Sainsbury's increase the price of theirs, and they launched a premium meal deal as well. Tesco's then followed suit the following years, but trying to keep it a little bit cheaper for those club card users, and the launching of the premium meal deal as well. Earlier this year, Sainsbury's increased their prices again, but did try and also include their ice cream in it, and then Tesco followed suit and increased again. And then Sainsbury's has actually quite quietly added a third tier to theirs that's £7. It's their kitchen deli range, which has more fresh style and health-led products as well. So the meal deal will not go anywhere. It's a great way for convenience stores to offer value to their customers, and it's a great footfall driver to store. So we will continue to see these develop, innovate, perhaps become even more premium and even more innovative, yet still delivering value in order to compete with those high streets. Another key area of growth from a missions perspective is treat. And treat has grown over the past couple of years by a percentage point, but actually it's been on a positive trajectory since 2006. And with upcoming legislation on things like vapes and cigarettes, convenience stores are going to be looking for something else to plug that spend gap. And consumers are always going to want some sort of treat. And there's a lot of scope for innovation here to really tap into those treat missions and offer something different. So Sedernese Stoke-on-Trent one-stop store capitalizes on these treating occasions really well. So you can see here, there's a piece of cake activation. It's something as simple as a donut with some soft serve, bit of chocolate sauce and flake on it. And this was a creative way to continue selling ice cream throughout the winter. They cost 80p to make, and they sell them at £2. And it was a really big hit. They sold over 100 in the first week. So the future of the treat mission depends on different things. Growth is going to come from indulgent, quality and premium innovation. Its stability will be around meal deals and innovation within those food-to-go ranges. But there is a threat to the treat mission. As I mentioned earlier, with the government potentially really trying to push their health agenda, there may well be more legislation or policy around some of these products, which the industry is just going to have to respond to. So finally, ending with 3 smaller but growing trends to watch within convenience: coffee, meal solutions, and social media. So the first one being coffee. So coffee is a huge footfall driver in convenience stores, and convenience stores say they're incredibly profitable. They can create temptation and prompt impulse purchasing as well. And there's a lot of scope for really encouraging cross-category purchasing with a coffee and a cake or a sandwich or a pastry in the morning, let's say, as well. We're seeing more innovation in the types of coffee kiosks we can see. So we might start to see more kiosks expand outside the traditional Costa ones that you commonly see in convenience stores at the moment. But coffee itself is innovating. It's not just a cheap morning pick-me-up anymore. Consumers want better quality coffee, and it's becoming more treat-led and more health-led within it. So you don't just simply get a black coffee or a white coffee, nor just a latte or an Americano anymore. You can get really health-led mushroom coffee, or you can get health and treat-led coffees such as matcha, turmeric, and even blue algae flavors. So capitalizing on these trends could be a great way for convenience stores to really grow coffee in their stores in a similar way to what we've seen with Slush. Another area of growth is within meal occasions, and this is from both daytime and meal for tonight occasions. And meal solutions tap into the essence of convenience perfectly. They're a convenient solution in a convenience store. And within meal for tonight, there's a couple of different avenues of growth or reasons for growth. We're seeing growth earlier in the week, so Mondays and Tuesdays, and this is really driven by consumers wanting something functional. They're feeling tired, they can't really be bothered to cook, they want something easy. But also later on in the week on Saturdays, and on Saturdays we know that consumers spend more on that meal for tonight occasion. So on these ones, they're looking for something a bit more premium, a bit more treat-led, a bit more indulgent, something that perhaps might replace dining out or even replace a takeaway at a more affordable rate. So this means premium meal kits are a huge opportunity in convenience. And we've seen frozen ready meal specialists Cook start to increase their presence in C-stores. And this is a huge opportunity for wholesalers and retailers alike to capitalize on, offering consumers a premium yet affordable and convenient meal solution. Sainsbury's also added new meal kits to their offering through its Gusto partnership. And this really displays growth in the consumer demand for fuss-free yet more fresh and adventurous meal solutions. And finally, I wanted to talk about the important role of social media within convenience. And we know that retailers are using this as an outreach to tell consumers about promotions and NPD, and really as a footfall driver to store. So some retailers are launching challenges through social media saying, come to my store, see if you can eat this cucumber within a minute or drink this 2-litre fizzy pop within a minute or two. And if you do, you get some sort of cash prize. And they've seen this to be a great footfall driver to store. But this also comes from a product lens as well. So we saw American pickles take off. You know, they're super vinegary, but they're also a fairly low-calorie snack. And currently there's been an explosion around freeze-dried candy. So sweets that have had all the water sucked out of them before being put through a vacuum, causing them to grow in size. So one retailer who stocked these said their first order of 50 bags sold out within 6 hours of being in the store, all because they made a video to go up on TikTok about it. And they said that they've had customers coming up to them for days asking when the next delivery will be. And they quite quickly made £600 off the products alone. So they think other retailers would be crazy to miss out on this trend. So social media can really be used to get shoppers into your store, communicating new products as well. So leaving you on a sweet note, we've covered how value is going to become increasingly more important, and consumers are looking for value and they're using loyalty cards, but also own label as a way to get that value. And that price gap between convenience stores and main estate stores may start to close, at least from a managed level. The current trend within health are really being driven by natural, non-processed and plant forwards. Innovation in this area will please the consumer and also be free from future government policy, if there is any. Food to go really has dominated a lot of the innovation over the last few years, and it's not slowing down. It's going to continue to do so with fresh, hot offerings to compete with wide out of home, but also through meal deals, giving consumers that value-led offering as well. Treat has seen consistent growth, and there's lots of innovation and scope to go after, and it could be a great way to plug that gap between some of the sales or spend lost through future policy within vaping and cigarettes. And finally, ones to watch: don't miss out on the opportunities within coffee kiosks meal solutions, and the power of social media. That's all from me today. Thank you very much for listening. Please do get in touch if you have any questions, and we'll be happy to help you out.